Podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the podcast, whose subscription numbers are smaller than the quantum realm. I am the man who has nothing, but I still got the van! David is my name. And the man who can't escape his past because Baskin-Robbins always figures it out, Joe.
So true. So true.
This is episode 72, and in this show we will discuss Shane Black's The Predator dropped a new trailer. Joe and I weren't too impressed with the first one. Let's see how this one turns out. Wait, there's a Robin Hood movie? Oh, well, let's just... Oh God. Oh God, no! And then, from D-list to Z-list camera character, Joe and I take a look at Marvel's Ant-Man. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I am spiffy, sir. How the hell are you?
I am good. Happy 4th of July.
Indeed. Happy birthday, America!
Mm-hmm.
It's a grand old flag. It's a high-flying flag and all that jazz. Nothing says America like a good comic book movie. And gosh darn it, this is it.
There we go.
Do you know what my job description is? I'm in acquisitions. I look up and I catch what falls out of the sky.
What's on the ship?
Okay, so the first Predator trailer dropped with very little fanfare. Well, not very little fanfare, with a decent amount of fanfare. But it didn't exactly, shall we say, make bulges in our pants. Would that be an accurate description?
I'd say that was fair.
Okay, so this new trailer came along and gave us a better idea of the story, and actually kind of spoiled the story a little bit. Joe, what was your impression of this new trailer for The Predator, written and directed by Shane Black?
First of all, there's a lady in this trailer now who I didn't notice in the first one, and I swear I had to look her up on IMDb because she looked exactly like the girl from the original Predator. Not the same girl. I said if this is her, she's aged amazingly, but no, it's not. And if they were trying to go for that same look, or maybe she's supposed to be like a relative or something, good job, because I thought that was her. I thought this trailer looked better.
Yeah.
It definitely looked a little more coherent. And like you said, maybe even a little too much, where they gave you a little too much of the story. I wouldn't say it really got me too excited, but you know, but it did sort of look like a more competent, well put together film, and it doesn't look like they're redoing the original Predator. I mean, usually when they do these kind of like, you know, let's stop and remake it, kind of sort of wink wink, they tend to retrace their steps. I almost get the sense that they're doing something very different with this. This is sort of like an old school invasion from space kind of movie, as opposed to what the original Predator was.
Yeah.
With that in mind, you know, I don't know. I mean, is that what we want from Predator movies? I guess maybe if you can't redo it, you know, if you can't recapture what the original was, try something else with it, I guess. So we'll see. I don't know. It's hard to say. But it does look... the trailer is definitely better than the first one.
Yeah. It definitely has a lot more fun elements to it than the first trailer did. I feel like I have a better idea of where they're going with the plot. I feel like I have a better idea of what they're doing with the characterizations. And a part of me is like, okay, this is better. I don't necessarily feel... I'm like you. I don't think it's putting my butt in the seat, but I'm at least like when it comes out on Blu-ray, it'll be like, oh, I guess I should watch this. I've gone from that to, okay, I'll give this a shot. So yeah. I guess that's something.
Agreed. I kind of feel like this is one, like, do we put it on the schedule? Like, I kind of forget if we did or we didn't.
I don't think we did.
I think we did. Maybe we moved it off even at one point, but it kind of falls into that Jurassic World. Like, it's just not really exciting me in any way, shape, or form. And again, I know I'll see it, and I probably won't mind it. It'll probably be fine, but can't say I'm dying for it unless by some miracle somebody comes running out of the theater the first day saying, "Oh, you got to see this. It's actually really good." We'll see.
Yeah. Definitely not raising my skirt too much, but at least a little bit better. Kind of sort of curious. And I think we should add that regarding Jurassic World, we want the audience, ladies and gentlemen, we want you to notice that we are now at week 2 since Jurassic World came out. Joe and I have not seen it. Joe and I have no plans to see it. And about the most that we're going to talk about it is exactly where I just talked about it right here, right now. You're welcome.
I think it pretty much did exactly what I was expecting it to do, and it was a lot of just mediocrity.
There's been whispers. A thief. He's got our commoners looking up, seeing hope.
If I may. $1,000 a week until he's cool.
Yeah.
Written by Ben Chandler and David James Kelly, directed by Otto Bathurst, comes the gritty remake of Robin Hood that nobody frickin' asked for, starring Eggsy from the Kingsman movies.
And it definitely sort of looks like the Kingsman meets Robin Hood, basically.
Yeah, and we're throwing in Jamie Foxx in there, and throwing Jamie Foxx in there for God knows whatever reason. This trailer almost offended me. Almost offended me. It felt like I felt like I was looking at like somewhere in maybe Los Angeles or some other school. There's like a marketing class, and this is like the prime example of a marketing class. How to make a movie that tries to appeal to the masses. At some point, I was like, is he going to pull out a fidget spinner? Is he going to start talking about Fortnite? This is like a whole trailer of fellow kids. Hey, kids, get on board this. See, Robin Hood is actually kind of cool, don't you think? He's hip.
Yeah.
It's like, the only good thing about this trailer is it made me appreciate the Predator trailer more, if that's a thing. But yeah, no, I just was like, I understand where they were going with it. I understand what they were doing with it. And, oh my goodness, the shock. The guy who's putting up the money to capture Robin Hood is actually Robin Hood? What the hell is it with these damn trailers spoiling that stuff? I get the feeling that would have been kind of a fun thing to find out at some point in the movie. That might have been the only thing it had going for it, if they had actually kept the identity of Robin Hood a secret. But no, they couldn't even do that right.
Yeah, this was so awful. I sat there and watched this. I was like, wow. I mean, it honestly felt like a parody of movies like this. It was almost like something you would have seen. Remember that show, The Critic?
Yeah.
With John Lovitz doing the voice of the guy. This totally seemed like a trailer you would see on that. It's like, Michael Bay's The Little Women. Like something like that. Like. Yeah, it was just so
now I need to watch
awful.
The Critic again. Yeah.
Huh?
Now I need to watch The Critic again.
That was a great show. But, I mean, this felt like that. It felt like it was so over the top and ridiculous that it had to have been like a goof on the action movie spin on classic tales kind of thing.
Yeah, I nothing about this appealed to me at all. I mean, maybe a part of it is get off my lawn, but I don't think so, because I can fall for a good action piece story like nobody's business. So this just, I'm stymied here. I'm stymied in conversation. I can't even, I'm like, just like, and not to mention the fact, what is this, like the 5th Robin Hood movie that's come out in the last 3 years?
I can't even keep track, honestly. I mean, it's really weird. I mean, yeah, why Robin Hood gets all the... I don't know. I really don't. And again, it really just sort of stunk of, like, again, like, the why modern trailers are just so bad. Like every trailer is over the top. Brum, brum, brum. And it's like for God's sakes, it's Robin Hood. Are you kidding me? I mean, they really don't have. They're so tone deaf. Everything has to be over the top, epic, brr. You know, oh my God, enough.
Remember in the 90s when everything was extreme?
Right? Oh my God.
That's kind of what it felt like to me, you know?
Yeah. So here's another film that will not be on our schedule for this year.
Yes, we've been reviewing way too many of these lately. Pre-reviewing way too many of these lately. We need to stop that. This is starting to hurt.
It is.
You know? I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm losing my mind a little bit, Joe.
Imagine a soldier the size of an insect. The ultimate secret weapon.
If you give godlike powers to everyone, it's going to be chaos.
So how do we stop him?
I know a guy. Scott, I've been watching you for a while. You're different. And I believe everyone deserves a shot at redemption. Do you?
Absolutely. My days of breaking into places and stealing stuff are over. What do you want me to do?
I want you to break into a place and steal some stuff.
Makes sense.
Armed with a supersuit, with the astonishing ability to shrink in scale but increase in strength, cat burglar Scott Lang must embrace his inner hero and help his mentor, Dr. Hank Pym, plan and pull off a heist that will save the world. Written by Edgar Wright, Joe Cornish, Adam McKay, and Paul Rudd. Story by Edgar Wright and Joe Cornish. Based on characters created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Directed by Peyton Reed. Marvel's Ant-Man. Now this has a storied history. I think before we actually get to that, we should probably cover one of the big elements of this. This was originally conceived as a movie written and directed by the famed Edgar Wright. He of Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, The World's End, most recently Baby Driver. This was supposed to be his baby. He actually was the one pushing Marvel to make this for years. He made a demo reel and everything like that for Marvel back when like the announcement of the first Avengers movie was still fresh in everybody's mind. And he worked on it, and he worked on it, and worked on it, and then he left the project. And to this day, nobody knows why. There's talk that he wasn't happy with having to incorporate stuff from the bigger Marvel Cinematic Universe, that he didn't like having restrictions. It's unknown. Whatever the case may be, this is when Peyton Reed came into the picture. Now, Peyton Reed he's a comedy director. He's not a terrible comedy director. He's got a couple of interesting things under his belt. But he was very much a last-minute inclusion into this. And kind of like with Solo, the minute I heard that, I thought for sure that this movie was pretty much dead on arrival. It's like the minute you bring a whole new director into it at the last minute, that just kind of feels like the end of the world. Okay. Now, Peyton Reed, he's directed some episodes of The Weird Al Show, The Upright Citizens Brigade, Mr. Show with Bob and Dave, Yes Man, The Breakup. So he's got some chops behind him. He even did a movie, a kind of a guilty pleasure movie of mine called Down with Love, a kind of throwback to the 50s style screwball comedies that was done in 2003 with Renee Zellweger and Ewan McGregor. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. It's cute. I thought it was cute, at least. Anyway, so here he comes, and he basically takes over the reins for Ant-Man, and the results were enjoyable, I felt, in the end. I could still feel a lot of the Edgar Wright influence. He obviously got a screen credit as well as a story by credit because this was his baby. So you still kind of felt some of the elements of that, some of the more some elements of the Edgar Wright stuff. But I found the story to be fun. You know, it's a throwaway plot for a throwaway character, and yet still was enjoyable enough. And you can put that squarely on Paul Rudd, who's he's an excellent comedic actor. He has great improvisational skills. I think he comes across earnest. You can bring that to my personal favorite, Michael Pena as Luis, his best friend. Okay, these little elements. Michael Douglas kind of gives it a air of seriousness, and that's not the word I'm looking for.
A little gravitas.
Yes, I think I would definitely say that. And I thought it was fine in the part. Evangeline Lilly, beautiful woman, does what she can with the part, and it's unfortunately a very thankless and almost throwaway part, but we'll get to that. I enjoyed it. I really did. Is it like my favorite Marvel movie? No, of course it's not my favorite Marvel movie, but it's certainly better than, say, Thor: The Dark World. And I would put it. You know what? One of these, at some point, maybe after Infinity War 2 comes out, we're going to have to do like a top list, go through all the movies and put them in order. You know what I mean?
All the Marvel movies?
Like a countdown, yeah, of worst to best in the Marvel movies. But I wouldn't put this at the bottom of my list. I wouldn't put it near the top. But middling seems to be the right way to put it. But it's still entertaining. Even watching it this last time, I was like still enjoying myself, still laughing. So there it is. There's my take on Ant-Man. Joe, how about you?
I would agree with a lot of what you said. I think I don't know if, to be honest with you, I think I like it. I have a feeling I liked it a little more than you. I don't know if I would call it middling, although I suppose that's fair. It is kind of I would simply call it a smaller, pun not intended, smaller film.
Boo!
I mean, the stakes are not as grand. It's definitely a little more self-contained, which is good. You don't need to know anything about the rest of the Marvel universe to sit down and watch this one and enjoy it for what it is, except for a very small cameo by Ant-Man. I mean, I'm sorry, by the Falcon, which kind of almost reminds me of the Deadpool joke. Is this all the superheroes we can afford for this one?
In a way, that's very accurate. Yeah.
But listen, I think this one is terrific, and I do think it's funny as I watch it. There is the movie critic in the back of my head that kind of goes, "Oh, there's that trope right there. Oh, there's that little cliche right there. Oh, he's got to go after the daughter now." Naturally, there's a couple things that they do that I just sort of say, "Boy, that sure is kind of paint by numbers." Yeah. So with that in mind, I don't find it to be the most creative, original, unique endeavor by any stretch. Yet, at the end of the day, I am honestly enjoying every minute, every frame of this film. So even if there's moments where I say, "Oh, that was kind of easy," that was I don't mind it when they fall back on formula if the formula works. And again, I'm sort of shocked at just how, again, did not expect much from this film, but when I saw it, boom, like, geez, another one that is absolutely 100% enjoyable from the opening credits to the closing credits. Yeah, so I absolutely enjoyed it, and quite frankly, I'm looking forward to Ant-Man and the Wasp. I know, again, when you bump it next to Infinity Wars, it feels very casual. I'd almost go as far as to say disposable. But I enjoy this one very much, and honestly, the trailer for the next one looks every bit as enjoyable, if not more so. So I'm actually kind of anxious for it. So yeah, we're going to talk about this film, but I am probably going to just brave fanboy a little bit, and again, I enjoy the hell out of it.
All right. I don't think we're as far off as you think. I'm just being kind of even in my disposition at this point. The basic gist of this plot is it opens up with a very well done younging up of Michael Douglas in 1989,
right,
at the creation of the Triskelion. He's there with the lovely Haley Atwell as Peggy Carter, and the wonderful, I'm so sorry, I'm John Slattery as Howard Stark, and a new one, Martin Donovan playing Mitchell Carson. And him explaining, stop trying to steal my tech. I'm done. I'm out. They make an allusion to the fact that his wife has died. He couldn't protect her, and he beats the crap out of Carson. And then we flash forward to today, and we meet Mr. Scott Lang. And now in the comic, in the comic, Hank. My God, where is my brain today? In the comic, Hank was a founding member of the Avengers. It was Ant-Man, Wasp, Hulk, Thor, Iron Man. That was the original team of the Avengers. And then later on, they found Captain America, and he became part of the team. The character of Hank Pym went through a lot of permutations through the years, and they kind of made what I felt was a crucial mistake for the character sometime in like the late 70s, early 80s.
Agreed.
Where I kind of got, you know what I'm talking about.
I do, yeah, go ahead.
They kind of had him. They tried to wave it off as a side effect of the Pym particles, but it didn't work. It kind of ruined the character, where he was an abusive husband to Janet Pym. And I kind of like that they started off with him as an older man. They don't really cover a lot of his past. He's an established person, and it goes straight to Scott. Scott is a much more accessible Ant-Man than the original Hank Pym was, because once Hank Pym lost that credibility as a person, it was done. I mean, you can forgive Tony Stark for when he was an alcoholic, but it's a lot harder to forgive a wife beater, especially when everybody loves the wife.
It does seem very odd. It was Marvel was trying to get into a lot of social issues, and like you said, they covered alcoholism, they covered this and the other thing. We need to have spousal abuse. So who's going to be the wife beater? Well, I guess let's give it to Hank Pym. I agree with you that was a very odd road to go down. But go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been better served if you'd made it like if you took a character. Personally, I think that you should have taken a woman character, a strong woman character, one who, like, when she's up against villains, she's like a complete badass. But then, she's with this man who she loves, who manipulates her, who beats her, and stuff like that, and she takes it from him because he loves. That would have been the perfect way to show it. That this powerful woman just was brought down by an abusive man simply because. That would have been a much more powerful statement, I think, as part of a comic. But no, they had to go with established because, screw you guys. This is not the Hank Pym we've got here. We've got a much more humbler. Still a little bit arrogant, but much more humbler, much more in need. His problem is he knows that Darren Cross, the person who stole his company out from under him, is about to perfect the Pym particle. And he has tried his entire life to make sure that it never gets out because it's way too dangerous in the hands of people he can't trust. This is the basic plot of the movie. He finds Scott, brings him along to help him steal the suit. And it's basically just one giant heist movie. If you think about it, there's a heist, there's a heist, there's a heist. It's like 3 different heists throughout the entire movie, right down to the end. And it sounds convoluted, but it actually works. I found the plot to be very compelling. I mean, I have one tiny problem with the physics of the character. We'll get to that in a little bit. But everything else I felt like fit together. I felt like the methodology that they used to break into his house the first time, I was really, really enjoying the fact that he's explaining the science of it's like, oh, shoot, there's a fingerprint thing here. Okay, well, find this, rip off with a piece of tape. You make that. That was great. I love that.
Very good scene, yeah.
The steel being like similar to the steel on the Titanic, so they freeze, they put hydrogen and stuff like that there. And because Hank's a scientist, it's like the fact that he's got that lying around, you don't even question it. So, yeah, I loved that scene. I love that little heist scene. And, excuse me, I even love the one typical trope that they do in heist movies is they explain the heist, how exactly they're going to execute it, what's going to happen here, there, and everywhere, and stuff like that. So that when things start to go wrong, the audience is like, oh, no, that's not part of the plan, and so on and so forth. That's one of the oldest tropes. Here, they didn't do that, and I appreciated that. They gave a general idea. It's like, we're just going to go through the pipes. destroy the building, blah, blah, blah. But they don't, like, reveal all the aspects of it until it's actually happening. So you're thinking to yourself, oh, okay, so this is going to work. Because the trope normally is, if you don't know exactly what the plan is, it always works. Because it's part of the discovery of it. And then they pull the rug out from under you and have it revealed that Cross knew all along. Yeah. I like that. I thought that was great.
I agree. I all everything, all of that stuff I really liked. And again, it's Marvel is very smart in this respect, where that's like most of these films, they sort of lean towards or kind of they sort of become like a send off on a particular genre. You know, Homecoming is like the teenage movie. You know, Iron Man is one, Thor is the Norse god. Kind of, they all sort of pick up on something. This one is, like you said, it's the heist movie, but it's Marvel's take, the superhero meets the heist movie thing. And you're right, every time it works. They do it smartly, and right from that first one was terrific.
Yeah. About the only going through the characters, you got Paul Rudd as Scott Lang, perfect. I can't imagine better casting. Once again, the casting department of Marvel just goes through the roof with this type of stuff.
I agree. And by the way, you know, I he's another one. I wouldn't say he's not in league with Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, but I do sort of think he kind of comes from that same school. Somebody who he's fine in the movies that he's been in. I see him in rom-coms. He's reasonably funny, but I would not have guessed that he would have pulled off Ant-Man. Boom, he did it. Yep. He was very good in that part.
100% agreed. Michael Douglas as Hank Pym, again, perfect. You got the perfect amount of gravitas, as you put it. It's the perfect word to use for him. Evangeline Lilly as Hope. Now, she was fine. I just kind of felt like her character didn't get as much development as I would have preferred. I would have liked a little more development. There was obviously an underlying thing in the relationship with the father, and I got what it was supposed to be because it was over the mother and everything like that, and that's fine. But I felt like they didn't focus enough on it to make me completely care, so to speak. And it was very difficult for me to enjoy the character because of that. She just kind of came across, instead of coming across as like, oh, she's a tough as nails woman and so on and so forth, she just kind of came across as mopey all the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I agree that a lot of that stuff, like I said before, when I was talking about a lot of the tropes, and a lot of it seemed very telegraphed. Yeah, I mean, when you got the idea that he didn't want her to go, obviously, because he didn't trust the technology. You knew that was gonna surface at some point. And the fact that the mother didn't really die in a plane crash, again, they telegraphed that from a mile away. What I did like was the part when, at least, when Scott says to her, look, have you not figured this out? I'm expendable. That's why I'm doing it. So I like the fact that his character was intelligent enough to he saw the telegraphing too. So I thought that was played pretty well. But yeah, I agree with you that whole thing was very, very on the nose.
Yeah. But I did like that. I loved that conversation that he had with her in the car when he finally was able to control one of the ants. I thought that was a great telling moment, because this is a guy who's the father of a daughter as well, so he understands exactly where Hank is coming from,
right?
As a father,
very true.
It was a very, very nice parallel that they made there with that. Next, you have Corey Stoll as Darren Cross. I'm going to just say it. He's a fine enough actor, but as a character, disposable.
Yeah, not only is he disposable, honestly, I kind of feel like this this joins the ranks of probably the most, like, the second this guy walks on screen, bad guy.
Yeah, pretty much.
And everything he does is like, it's like, all right already. I get he's the bad guy. Like, he's got to kill the lamb. He's got to do, like, everything he does is so. I mean, this goes back to, remember The Patriot and the bad guy,
the English bad guy. Yeah,
yeah, like so bad. He's practically got like a forked tongue. He's like he's so reptilian in the way. That's this guy. I mean, he is just so ridiculously over the top. Why would anybody have trusted him with anything? Because he's so obviously a villain, like the most over the top villain ever.
Yep, pretty much. I was I have nothing against the actor. I actually like the actor very much. He was in the first season of House of Cards, and I thought he was really good in that. And I thought he did. I get what they were trying to do with the character. The implication was supposed to be that the more he tried, the more he shrank himself, the crazier it made him, which is fine, except for the fact that half the movie was spent showing that he didn't know how to properly shrink anything yet. So how could he have?
Yeah, and they sort of say that later. Like later on, it's like it's not you, it's the thing warping your mind, and it's like, has he? I mean, Scott has already shrunk more than him. So what's the deal there? I didn't quite get that.
Yeah,
the guy was a creep from the get go. Just deal with it.
Yeah, it kind of felt like there was a plot point that got compartmentalized for whatever reason.
Yeah,
and they tried to wave it away with exposition, but I don't think that really worked 100%.
Agreed.
And you get Bobby Cannavale as Paxton. That's the stepfather. Bobby Cannavale is an interesting guy. I've seen him. Did you ever see the TV show Boardwalk Empire?
Once or twice.
Okay.
I know I've seen him in something, but yeah.
Oh yeah, he was like the big villain in Boardwalk Empire. I think in like one of the last seasons, and he was just freaking amazingly creepy as hell. He was also in the recent Jumanji movie as the bad guy, and he was on Mr. Robot this past season. And I find this guy to be a freaking awesome dude. I do. It's like it's very difficult to be a character who's. The basic gist of the character is he doesn't like Scott. And there's a part of you that's supposed to be like, oh, boo, you don't like Scott. Scott's the hero. We're supposed to like him. But yet, he comes across as reasonable about it. It's like, no, this guy's a thief. I'm a cop. I'm trying to protect, my wife and my stepdaughter.
Yeah.
And that's it's very easy for that line to be like, from the 80s, from the 80s teen movies where, you want the plucky friend to to get the girl, but the boyfriend is actually just a nice guy type thing. It's like in those lines. You can't have this guy be a complete villain. And I think the actor plays him extremely well in that respect.
Yeah, I agree. And again, they for a lot of things they do kind of on the nose in this. I do like that they gave him a little depth and, again, he's that guy, and we can't wait for the wife to see what a jerk he is, so she'll go back to the original. No. It was done pretty well. I agree.
Yep, I can't really complain about that at all. But let's talk about the star of Ant-Man. Let's talk about Michael Pena as Luis, who in the span of literally after the Marvel credits come up, and after he does the thing in the jail where he's got to punch the guys before he's let out, there he is in the van, and he's like, oh yeah, my girl and I broke up. Yeah, my mom died, my dad got deported, but I got the van. It's like I'm sold. It's like I don't care.
It's cool, right?
Yeah, but it's cool, right?
Yeah.
I absolutely loved him. And the funny part is I've seen him in other roles, dramatic roles, and the guy has amazing acting chops. But here he is up against Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd is one of is known very well, no matter what movie he does, for being an improv king. And I felt like this guy, this little Hispanic gentleman, stood toe-to-toe with a supposed master of improv craft, and in some respects kind of outshone him comedy-wise.
Yeah, I agree with that. He was definitely good. Yeah, he played off. Paul Rudd kind of doing more or less the straight man in this. Yeah, I thought he did a great job. I think you like him a little more than I did, but he was good.
Oh no, I did. Every time that he opens his mouth, I'm just smiling. There's just something about his earnestness. There's something about his expression. He's just. It's not like he's an innocent or anything like that. He's been around the block and stuff like that. He's just so happy to be here, and it's kind of contagious. Down to his little monologue at the end where Stan Lee has his cameo. I mean, just the way it's like, so wait, so what did he say? And it's like he just looks at the screen. He gets the last line of the movie. He's like, He said yes, and he just smiles, all proud. Come on, how can you not like that?
Those scenes were pretty good, by the way. When they have him, he's doing all the narration, and everyone else they're voicing along as he's sort of telling the story. That was pretty well done. I like that.
It's like I was looking at this wonderful painting, and it's more of a I can't even say it because I don't do it justice because he's talking about stuff like this. I'm more of a red wine guy and everything like that. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I found his comic relief to be nice, enjoyable, and when the serious stuff hit, the thing sometimes, and what movies sometimes forget is that when the serious stuff happens, there's a point where you're supposed to quip and there's a point where you're not supposed to quip. When Scott is fighting Darren Cross at the end, where his daughter's life is in the balance, that's not the time for Ant-Man to quip. That's not happening. You're a father. You're trying to protect this is like the fight for his daughter's life. So he's not going to quip under any circumstances. So, of course, you cut to Luis and the crew. It's like, we got to help our boy Scott. And then the place is surrounded by cops. Like, back it up. Back it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back it up.
That was good.
Just back it up. Just back it up here. That's it. That, a great moment of tension breaker for that entire thing. So, well constructed. Yeah. I do. You know what? Again, you think that I don't like it as much. I find it, the only reason I find it middling is because there is a lot of tropes working here. The atypical, it's like, oh, you have a guy who can shrink? Well, the bad guy's a guy that can shrink too.
Yes. Yeah. That is a very standard Marvel, I guess trope is the word. I mean, I there's a part of me that wants to call it it's a little limiting. It's a weakness that they keep sort of falling into that. I maybe I won't call it a weakness because, I mean, for the most part, they make it work. But, yeah, it's just very, very standard. And again, that's kind of my, if I have any criticisms of this movie, it's not that things don't work. It's not that they did something poorly or they missed a mark. It's just, again, it's just kind of on that conveyor belt. So yeah, again, he's gonna shrink. Well, then the bad guy's gonna shrink too, and I'm gonna shrink even shrinkier than you, or something or other. Yeah. So again, very, very standard stuff.
I'm the shrinkiest shrinky dink that's ever shrink the dink. Hey kids, remember Shrinky Dinks? Not a member of our audience does. Okay, here is my other problem, and I don't even think they ever explain it very well in the comics. So they go out of their way to explain that in this compacted size, you could have the force of a bullet when you hit, which the physics on that is a little dicey to begin with. But then it's inconsistent in the way it works. The first time he shrinks, he gets washed out of the bathtub, and he flies up in the air, and he hits the ground, and he cracks a piece of tile when he hits the ground. So obviously he still has the relative same density. That's what they're trying to say, that he still has the same density as he would as if he was normal size. But then Michael Douglas casually carries a tank into Pym Technologies building. And if that is the case, shouldn't that tank weigh a ton still?
Yeah. That's very, very true. I had that same feeling too. I wasn't quite thinking even density necessarily. By the way, when you saw, speaking of like telegraphing, when he walks in with the tank, you knew that thing was going to blow up by the end of the movie.
Yeah. It was way too telegraphed, agreed, but go on.
Totally. I mean, they zoomed in on it at some point when he was walking into the building. It's like, all right, I get it. That's going to be something. But yeah, I also did sort of have that same feeling where I kind of felt like every once in a while, like when he was shrinking, he like kind of zipped here and zipped there and zipped there. And then in other parts, like you'd see him like jumping on top of the gun, and he's running up the length of the gun like he's hoofing it. Like it's almost like you could imagine him like sucking wind as he's running the football field length of this gun. You know, but other times he's sort of zipping here and zipping there. So yeah, I agree with you about the physics sort of being off and on.
Definitely selective, because if technically, depending upon how much he punched, could be the difference between a tap and like almost like hitting somebody with the side of with a brick.
Yeah.
Then each one of those steps on the gun should have had the guy going like, his hand just bouncing up and down as he's running along. So there was the physics inconsistency is a little dicey. I'm not going to hold it too much against it, because I mean we're at this point now. We've gone past the point. The whole start of the Marvel Universe, in fact, the whole start of almost any comic book movie is we're trying to see if we can ground it in reality. And, now that they've established this universe, now that they have grounded it in reality, they're starting to go into the fantastical areas. Because let's face it, when you break it down to brass tacks, the magic stuff just doesn't make sense. The Bifrost Bridge in this supposed realistic world doesn't make sense. But this is a comic book. This is your comic books brought to life. It's like we've managed to be able to train the audience into accepting that these things can exist in reality, and because we can, now we can go to the fantastic. It's kind of like when you think of the best example I can make is think of like the early James Bond gadgets and how there was like there's kind of a real world sounding thing to that, and then you go to what was it, Die Another Day, or was it was it Die? Yeah, it was Die Another Day.
Yep.
When he's got the cloaking device on his god-darn car.
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
If I have one more person tell me, well, that's based on real technology, shut up. I don't care. I don't care if the concept is based on something possible. The execution, no.
Yeah.
Not like that.
Look, technically speaking, the helicarrier in the first Avengers movies used that same style of technology. Okay, that's what that technology is based on, if I may, and I'm not defending the use of it in the movie. My point is this: in Avengers, they used it in a way that it worked. In Die Another Day, it did not.
Right.
That's the big difference.
I liked how it was when they did it in Homecoming. By the way, in Spider-Man: Homecoming, they kind of did that with the airplane.
Yeah.
But again, as they're near it does not. I mean, to somebody on the ground, sure. To them next to it. No, it does not look invisible because I can see it's nothing but a little bunch of screens or whatever. So yeah,
right. There's a huge difference. There's a huge difference in that's possible, and then you take it too far.
Right.
And now this movie is the evolution of it. This movie. I mean, I don't want to quite call it the invisible car from Die Another Day, but it's close because now we're really stretching the realm of physics and everything like that, and whatever sort of stuff like that. But then it's funny too because if you think about it, from here, what's next? Now you have the nanoparticles that Tony Stark uses to make any weapon he wants whenever he feels like it.
Right.
Which I know is a pain point for you.
Yes, it is absolutely a bugaboo of mine. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I mean, I almost feel like at this point it's like, and it's not even. Like, they haven't even really tried to explain it away either. I remember thinking when I saw the Infinity War trailer and I saw the whatever you call it, the nanotechnology building the suit sort of, I was expecting this to be sort of like later in the movie and maybe he had the same technology from, like Guardians of the Galaxy sort of had that thing where his mask would sort of just materialize more or less. I was sort of waiting for that. The idea that this was just another Tony Stark invention. I'm like, no. Like dial it back, guys.
Yeah, even much so in like Black Panther when Shuri created the suit that comes out of the necklace.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it really is just getting kind of like it's almost like they're not even. Why do we need to stop and explain this? We'll just say this is what it does and blah blah blah. Hey, stop explaining it, please. I want something. I'd like a little science in my science fiction.
Right. Well, this is actually part of the problem with tone. When you start shifting the tone of a movie series this big, you started off with we're going to do this real. We're going to make this as real as possible. When Tony Stark walks out of that cave for the first time in his Iron Man suit, absolutely, I believe that if you're a genius who knows mechanics and electronics as well as you do, that's the suit you walk out of a freaking cave with.
Right.
100%. Bought it from the get-go. And you can even agree on the evolution of it. But as time goes on, it kind of feels like they almost have this like bet with themselves, oh, we have to top ourselves. But do you? Do you really have to top yourselves?
Yeah.
Can't you just, settle with what you got? I mean, granted, I 100% agree. In that scene in Infinity War where he's desperately fighting against Thanos, trying to keep his hand closed, trying to punch him back and forth, tries to make a knife to stab him, and Thanos grabs it, takes it, and stabs him with it. That is an amazing freaking moment in the damn movie.
Yeah.
And silences audiences every time I've seen it. Just like the entire audience, every time.
Yeah.
So if that's really what they were going for, because gosh knows Iron Man doesn't carry a blade, fine, I get why you did that, but sometimes you don't. I almost feel like you shouldn't have explained in this movie about how, small size, you get, punch like a bullet and so on and so forth. I kind of feel like if you hadn't done that, if you had just said, if you had just had her teaching him how to fight, as opposed to, when you get small, you get super strength and so on and so forth, I feel like that would have been okay. Or when he fell down from the water the first time, if he hadn't cracked the tile, it would have been better. It would have been better if you had made it seem like his size is just relative to what he is, and as he grows, it's kind of like if he's growing and he's throwing a punch as he's growing, I imagine the velocity of him growing as well as the force of his punch could do something that could throw somebody through a window. That would have been easy to explain. I would have bought that. But I feel like them trying to bring real world physics into it in a way detrimented the plot, because now all I'm seeing at least, even the first time I saw it, I was like, this physics are really inconsistent in this movie. And that's what I was left with.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm with you, and I guess I'm hesitant to criticize it for that, because I don't know how to answer I don't know how to fix it. And I hear what you're saying, but yeah, but the idea that he could punch somebody as Ant-Man, and it would really, I would buy it more if they just said, basically, you're just going to run and shoulder into somebody, because, what's a punch going to do? Like, they say, an ant, can carry 10 times, 100 times its own weight. Okay, but if an ant punches me, I'm not going to feel it. So I almost feel like they're like you said, they're kind of almost sort of contradicting themselves in how they're trying to sort of frame this. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine that a punch from Ant-Man is going to do anything. Just flying at him and just crashing into him, that would hurt, Mm-hmm. And I mean, not for nothing, if he's that small, if his hand is that small, then a punch would really actually probably cut him, I would think. You're almost talking about like putting a needle through skin at this point, as opposed to a punch.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of it like that. That's an interesting idea.
I mean, if Ant-Man runs, just sticks his finger out like a pointer finger and runs at somebody, it's going to go into somebody's skin because he's that tiny.
Mm.
So and again, and that would be a little gross if we just had Ant-Man slicing people's faces up. So we got to do something. So yeah, again, so it becomes a little tricky on how you handle it.
I suppose. Yeah, you got a point there, my man. That's interesting. I hadn't really considered that. And this is why we talk about these things, because it's always fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, but in the end, they leave a lot of room for a sequel. They introduced the character, and it made the character's appearance in Civil War much easier to understand who he was, what he was, and that's part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I wish the physics were kept a little more consistent, but you know what? I guess you can't have everything. Still, that aside, it's still fun.
Agreed. Absolutely.
What were you about to say? You had your mouth wide open.
Well, again, again, how when you talk about them perfecting the physics, it's almost like you're saying to perfect the physics would almost have to imply that it would be real. I mean, at some point, you just sort of have to say, okay, this can't really happen. We're going to pretend it can happen as much as well as we want. So this whole physics thing, it's like, okay, but like you said, I mean, they can't solve every problem, in a way that's going to be satisfactory, because again, you are talking about a fantasy, unless, and again, like, can they eventually someday learn how to shrink and grow? I don't think so, because again, you're talking about actual physical matter. Can you blow something that is 6 feet tall into 40 something feet tall? Well, I mean, matter has to come from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm skeptical. I hear what they're saying about the atoms, but with the same amount of density, without matter actually coming from somewhere. Again, so you are at some point, you just sort of have to close your eyes and say, okay, this is a fantasy movie. So to expect them to be able to correct or explain the physics in a way that's satisfactory almost implies that there is a possible way to do this, and I want them to sort of talk about that. I don't know that there's a possible way to do it. So I think the way they do it is, I mean, again, I feel like they're doing the best they can with what they got.
You know what? I can agree with that, but you, for example, want to know what the deal is with the Hulk. You kind of feel like that they've been playing fast and loose with the rules with the Hulk. And here we have a movie that's actually trying to explain it. My problem is this. Sometimes I kind of feel like maybe sometimes no explanation is the best explanation. Like even that little line from the first Avengers movie, "That's my secret cap, I'm always angry." A part of me almost wishes I never had him say that they didn't make a big deal out of him being able to control becoming the Hulk and not becoming the Hulk, because I kind of feel like that took away a small bit of the mystique. That said, but if you're going to stop for a moment and explain, you're now beholden to the rules that you're explaining, and they better make sense. And since they did a whole section in this movie where they tried to explain about why it's different when you're small and you're big and so on and so forth, then it needs to be consistent. And my problem is that it's not consistent. Whereas and with the Hulk as well, it's almost the same thing because, the Hulk's powers come and go as the plot needs it.
Right.
And in some cases, it's kind of like, sometimes you have to let go and so on and so forth. Because if they're not going to take the time to explain it, then to them, it's not important. And it's me, that's them signaling to me, then I shouldn't give it much thought. But when you take a moment to explain it, you put an urgency or importance to that explanation. So now my expectation goes back to you that if you're going to explain it to me, it better make sense. That's all I mean.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, I kind of feel like, we're at the risk of really going off on a tangent. Like take The Matrix. I think The Matrix, the first one, is phenomenal because it sets up its own rules and it abides by its own rules.
100%.
Sequelitis kicks in, and it's like, well, now we have to expand the universe and do more things and do new things. So you start throwing things in there that don't work the way the first one worked. So now you're sort of just playing willy-nilly with all the rules. And yeah, in the first Avengers, if he's going to say, I don't mind that he says, I'm always angry. You could do that once. But then if you're going to go up, but then again, the sequels happen and they say, well, what are we going to do with the Hulk this time? He has to have some sort of an arc. He has to have something going on. So they throw in a new rule, a new set of problems that completely defy what you had originally set up. And now, like you said, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense anymore. So sometimes you just sort of have to say, look, we made the rule. We got to stick with the rule. We can't just rearrange it every time we feel, just to have something original, just to say, just to keep you guessing, and just to say, oh, look, this is different. So yeah, I hear what you're saying in that respect.
40 years ago, I created a suit, but it was dangerous, so I hid it from the world. My assistant, Darren Cross, they became obsessed with recreating my formula. If this technology gets out, it's going to be chaos. Scott, this is your chance to become the hero. I need you to be the Ant-Man.
I think our first move should be calling the Avengers.
Well, Joe, that brings us to the mark. The mark. The mark of quality. The mark. The score. The score, my man. They call heist movie. It's called a heist movie. The criminals usually call what they're trying to get the score. Joe, the score for Ant-Man. What do you got?
Yeah, it's funny. I said it earlier. I said, this is kind of one of these films where I can, using as long as we're talking about The Matrix, I can see The Matrix, I see, instead of the code, I see blonde, brunette, redhead. This is one of those movies where I'm watching it again. Some of the things are telegraphed just so much that I feel like if I wanted to, I could sit here with my scorecard and check one off for that, check one off for that, you telegraph this one. Oh, there's the tank. Oh, you mentioned the quantum realm. We're going to be in the quantum realm before this is over. I mean, again, so many things they telegraph and then do. There's a lot, again, there is a temptation for me to knock this down a bit and say, oh, this is not quite as good as such and such.
Right.
I got to tell you, though, at the end of the day, this movie has so much. It's very fun. It's got a lot of charm. Everything about it, again, even if it is sort of cookie cutter and paint by numbers, it works. I mean, they got a formula that works, and they don't tinker with it. Right. So I got to give it an 8.
Okay.
I'm tempted to give it a 7. I'm tempted to say it's not quite on par with some of the others that were more original or more daring or tread new ground. Look, I enjoy every frame of this film. I'm sticking with my 8.
First of all, you don't ever have to apologize about your score, you son of a gun. Never. This is Reviews Without Remorse. That means we don't sound apologetic when I give this movie an 8 as well.
All right. I was really expecting a 7.
No, I still like the movie. I still enjoy the movie. I still love the characters. And I'll be honest with you, I probably would have given it a 7 if it hadn't been for Luis. Because every time he's on the screen, I just enjoy it even more.
There you go.
And it's still a fun movie. It still fits well into the universe. I feel like it's got shortcomings, but I think we've very adequately covered those shortcomings in the time that we talked.
I like it. I agree.
All right, who asked you? You want to go first, or shall I go first?
I'll take it. I've already mentioned it already. I think the villain was just so over the top. Just kind of he was almost like Obadiah Stane on steroids. Same character, just way too on the nose, way too obvious. That nothing. I mean, when they did Iron Man, Obadiah Stane surprised you. You did not see that coming. You were very surprised that this was just a mile away, just so on the nose, evil, to the point where, and again, even when they get to the end, they went in. I liked, again, the heist happens, he's one step ahead of them. He knows that they're there to steal a thing. And then at one point he goes, whoever said we were just going to steal it, boom, and the whole building blows up. That was we're going to blow up the whole thing.
Right.
I can understand that from there, the guy gets a little crazed, but he's still the owner of the company. He's still incredibly wealthy, and he still has the information. Again, we live in a computer internet age where not everything was stored in that building, so he still has to know how to replicate his formula. So to try to say that all was lost, and that's why he goes so crazed. I mean, the guy just leaves and decides, I'm going to start murdering people now.
Yep. Which he had started doing earlier in the movie anyway.
But he did it in secret. He did it in a way that he could cover his tracks. Now he's just like, I'm going to put the suit on and go to the daughter's house and kill her and kill Ant-Man and kill this guy and essentially be exposed as being a criminal. So why throw it all away? Again, I just felt like they were trying way too hard to make this guy just over the top evil, to a point where it really lost believability. So that's where I'm gonna. They really could have reined that back in a lot.
I'll agree with you on that one, because actually that's very similar to my Who Asked You, which is, can we please stop with the polar opposite villain? It's seriously cliche, stereotype, trope, boring as hell now.
Yeah.
No more.
It's almost baffling. Like it's seriously, if their mission was to come up with villains that are mirror images of the heroes, it's almost like I'd say, boy, you guys are hitting it out of the park, I don't quite. I mean, seriously, Iron Man or Captain America, the other guy has the same serum. Iron Man, the other guy has the same tech. Thor, he's his brother. He's seriously, Hulk goes against the bigger, uglier Hulk. Now we got Ant-Man going against another. I mean, it's really getting like, wow. Like, again, and it's odd because the Marvel Universe has such a plethora of villains to go after, to mine. So, why stick with something that is... I mean, again, I understand, well, the fights have to work. The fights have to be even. Well, yeah, I get that. But again, why not come up with somebody who... like if this is Spider-Man's specialty, come up with a guy who can undercut his powers and then come up with other challenges. It's that kind of thing. I'm totally gonna agree with you there.
Yeah, it's really, seriously, guys. I understand. Like, one of the things I liked about Strange, Doctor Strange, was the fight wasn't technically against the minions. It was technically against Dormammu. And I like the way that they resolved that. So I thought that was kind of clever. But at the same time, they did kind of set up the wizard versus wizard battle between Mordo and Doctor Strange with that final cutscene that they used in the trailer, in the movie. So I almost kind of feel like, before you put him against his mirror opposite, why don't you establish him first? Establish him, get him, and then make, his second battle to be won against somebody that is not going to be as easily defeated because they're similar to you in some respect. It doesn't always have to come out of the gate that way. And frankly, just stop in general. It's done. It's seriously, when people talk about comic book fatigue, this is the reason why. Stop.
I'll agree with that.
And how about for your consideration?
This is going to be kind of not very special probably, but I have to hand it to the special effects. I think the effects
really
in this movie really spot on. First of all, that opening, we mentioned it real quick, when they de-aged Michael Douglas. I really think that is as good as I've ever seen that technology. I think maybe Kurt Russell in Guardians 2 would be a close second or on par. Maybe that could even be the one. But this one was that. But that was even just sort of a very brief shot, or two. This one was a full blown conversation with a younger Michael Douglas, and I swear to you, if somebody told me they filmed this in the 80s and put it in the vault to pull out, today, I'd be like, oh, okay. 'Cause, I mean, they really got that spot on.
100%. Yes.
I mean, it was just mind-boggling, and I love, and again, everything else worked too. Some of the ant effects, I thought the ants moved a little, kind of okay. But one of the things I thought was terrific. I mean, like when he did his first transformation, when he shrinks and falls into the tub. Mm-hmm. I remember thinking, like, wow, they really got that right. Because I remember, like, when I was younger, like, I remember The Incredible Shrinking Woman.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, a great movie, and for the time, well, what do? You just build giant stuff around her, and that's how you make her look small. Now you can do it differently and better. And I remember even back then saying, like, it's not so much to make her look small. You have to make the whole world look huge. Like, you have to make the environment look gigantic. You have to make, like, that has to look like it's got to be like a football field away when it's really just a few inches. Here they got it. Again, it's like he gets small, but the tub just gets huge, and it's almost, and I remember thinking even like back then, like, couldn't you film this with like a fisheye lens or something to really make it look like, but here they got it. They really made the whole surrounding area look gigantic. And I thought that's what these things have always been missing. So again, the effects, not only are the effects great, but they really did think out of the box and really try to make it, smart. They did a really good job, because again, it's almost like, years ago you'd see like, oh yeah, they made him look really small. See how they do that? They just green screen this little guy, but it just looks stupid. Here they really did nail it. I mean, they made the whole world around it look so good. So yeah, I mean, I was really impressed with the effects.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you that, my man. That was really, really some good stuff that they pulled off in the movie with regards to effects. And usually, most of the time, they could pull off some good stuff in Marvel movies. There's exceptions to the rules. It doesn't happen very often, but this one, really, really, really good.
Agreed.
Really, 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 really good. For me, I mean, are you really going to be surprised with what I'm about to say? I practically was gushing throughout the entire frickin' thing. You know what I'm going to say.
I have no idea. Go ahead.
Michael Pena as Lewis. I love you. You made the movie for me, so much so that when the first trailer came out and you weren't in the first trailer, I was disappointed. So yes, the perfect charm and wit needed at just the right moment, and played straight so well that I feel like he's an important part of the Ant-Man story now as much as Ant-Man. And he's not even a character from the comic.
All right, like I said, I didn't like it as much as you did, but I won't knock you for that.
I appreciate the consideration, sir. No, I really did enjoy his performance. I enjoyed his earnestness. It's like if the actor was trying to get across, man, I'm excited to be in a Marvel movie, he really came across very, very well. I thought the sequences with him, with explaining how he got the jobs and everything like that, was very well done. Clever, something fun and original, something that hadn't been done in a Marvel movie at this point. And I always appreciate when they pull stuff like that. And I like when you get a character who's not part of Marvel canon that suddenly becomes like a breathing thing. You know, it's not your Tony Starks or anybody like that. Like, Peggy Carter was basically a barely mentioned character from the original story back in the 40s, and here she is fully fleshed and brought to life, and I can't imagine anybody else but Haley Atwell playing it. There's always that possibility that you can take something minor and turn it into something great, and Michael Pena proves that with Lewis. So, yes, I loved him. A side little asterisk for Mr. Peyton Reed, who walked in on a situation and had like basically a month to get shit together in order to do this movie and managed to pull it off, I think.
I like it. I'm with you. Good. Well said. Very well said.
Yep. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this review of Ant-Man. Looks like we ran long, of course. You would think we would run short, but we didn't. We ran long. But that's okay. Yep. But next time, ladies and gentlemen, we are reviewing, I think this is the last new movie we have scheduled for the summer. And that is Ant-Man and the Wasp. Oh, no, that's not true. I forgot. We still have Mission Impossible. My bad.
That's true. Yep.
Yes, next week.
This is Marvel's last movie for the year.
Yep.
And we will
our
be...
last Marvel movie.
Almost. Only the Hulk is left. If we go back and do the Incredible Hulk, that'll fit. Which I still sort of to this day feel like, you know, they probably should have just started. Whatever. I always look at that one and say that's kind of as much in the Marvel universe as like Man of Steel is to the DC universe, because I always say like I bet you they really didn't plan that out too well, but whatever. It sort of feels odd, but hey. Yeah, I guess once we do Ant-Man and the Wasp, we'll be one away from doing the entire Marvel universe. Then we can do our checklist if you want, our rankings. So yeah,
but here's my feeling. Check it out. We should review the Incredible Hulk before Captain Marvel comes out, and then we should do the countdown of Marvel movies before Infinity War 2 comes out. That's my feeling.
That's fine with me.
Yep.
Totally fine with me.
Sweet. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, have a happy and safe 4th of July. Enjoy your apple pie and your barbecue.
Same here. Have a good one. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.